Welcome to Cyber Studies. If this is your first time here, my name is Giovanni. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is episode 6 of our PowerShell playlist, where we're getting into filtering and formatting. So without further ado, let's get in there. All right, folks, so tonight we're gonna get into filtering and formatting. So with PowerShell, there's a lot of things you can do to kind of help yourself through your daily task. So let's just do a basic get process. So as we know, when we get into these end processes, services, what have you, there's tons of data. So what we can do, and we're gonna try with tonight, is the where object command. Now, kind of think of this as the, hey, we want to take all this information and only see stuff where the object is blankety blank. So we're going to say in this instance, where object is going to be the property of name equals, and let's just do notepad. Boop. So instead of having all this output that we have to then scroll through and all these things, we can actually just take our stuff and bring it to exactly what we're looking for. Now, in previous videos, we did talk about things like aliases and who wants to go and type out all this stuff every time we're looking for something. So in this case, we can take where object and make it where. And we can also do the same thing. I thought this was kind of funny. We can take that and make it even less and just do question mark. Now, we do have this here, and it's fine and dandy, but in PowerShell, there is this kind of mantra of filter first or filter left, format right. And now what that would look like in this case, we're just gonna, I have a prepped example here of get service, and I'll spare you my typing. But in this case, we have the get service being piped directly into the filter of where the object starts filtering it out to like the status is equaling to running, and then the name we're looking for Windows or Win with a splat, that wild card. So we'll see here, we get our 3 results back, and that's cool. And then the same intent here, this one is, this is what we currently have. We're going to do this instead. So what we do, the only thing different really here is that at the beginning of the pipe, we're gonna have the get service, and we're looking for that name that starts with WIN, with that wildcard. So you'll see here, it's the exact same results, but under the hood, and I'm gonna show you a neat little command if you're building out your scripts. This is the measure command right down here. And what we can do is we can take the script, the first one that we ran, and we can put this inside of that measure command there. And we see it took 9 milliseconds to run, which, I mean, 9 milliseconds, you know, that's not that crazy. But when you compare it to, say, I'll do this again, the second one that we ran right here, beep. This one is 2 milliseconds, and it is the same exact results. Now, where you can see this is really useful is as time goes, you're building out your scripts, more information is coming in, Active Directory has tons of stuff. You can really streamline your process and make it extremely efficient. So the same exact results, it's more than twice as fast just by moving a little bit of that filtering to the front of the pipe. Because essentially you're taking less information pulled from these commandlets and being passed further along, where we're being more picky on what we're passing through that pipeline. Now, this is great. This is, you know, awesome as it is already. Let me clear up some space here. Now here we can get into something called select object. Now, very much in that same mantra of being efficient with what we're looking for. Select object says, hey, we're taking a specific property from our output. So we can do, let's just do another get process here. And in this case, we're going to do select object with the property. We'll do process name, ID, and we'll do working as set. And right here, and this is where it's kind of important, is again, it's very full out of that output, but in this case with our output, all we're going to be getting are the things that we selected to see. So this is kind of, you start playing into that, what is it, verb nouns of PowerShell. So we do have that select the objects that we want to see from our initial get process. And that's right here for our get process, the ID, and the working set. It's like what your process is using or whatever. Okay, so now we have down here, let's go back down to that. And we can kind of do a few other things. If we don't want to see all that stuff, we can do, is it last 5? Oh, and then this is last 5. As you can imagine, just the last 5 of that. If you don't want to see everything on there, you can do sorting to kind of put things to the bottom or top and do your long tail, short tail analysis and that kind of a bit. Now, we can take everything that we did from the previous with the where objects, and we can add that to our select objects here. And I have a prepped example from up above. And what this is going to do is going to say, hey, we're taking that get service, we're piping into that where object, we're doing a filter script on the status equaling to stop, and then the start type is automatic. Then we're doing that select object where the name, the status, and the start types are being piped there. And this is really helpful because, again, if you've run get service as you saw, there's just tons of information, things you can sift through. You can kind of see the power of where this all starts to compound, and you can kind of make your tools a little bit more efficient. And again, you know, this is just really cool in my opinion. Now, we do have all this information here. Let's see if we can do some more of that formatting that we talked about earlier. So let me clear up some space. All right, so now we're getting into the format list. Now, these are just command lists. Some, it depends on what kind of commandlet you're using. Some of these might be built in automatically. And there's a few of them I just want to talk about. There's a couple of different ways you can go with this. There's some advanced formatting you can get into. Excuse me. But the first one we're going to get into is the format list. So you're going to see things in that more of that, not so much of a column, but more segmented in space. So we can say something like get service. And as I said before, it's kind of convoluted, a little bit more, you know, cumbersome. Then we can pipe it into our, let's see here, format list. And then we can also do format list. We can go shorthand and we can do FL. Now, what's nice about this is it takes, you know, that big long list that we had in the different columns, might be a little bit harder to read. And it shows us, hey, here is, you know, all the information about the specific, you know, services that we're running. Now we can make that a little bit nicer, and we can take that and we can do like an attack property. We're gonna use another wildcard. And what this does is give us a little bit more information. So there was like our default information that's passed through the pipeline. This gives us everything. By doing that wildcard, it says, hey, you know, I want the property of, you fill in the blank. And it shows us everything right there. And so you can kind of, you know, just fill this out, see how you want to kind of filter through this. You can change which ones you want to see using that select object commandlet if we wanted to, and just kind of go through this a little bit. Now, we do have this one here where it is more segmented in space, but it does take up a larger output. So if you were piping that or appending or, you know, putting it somewhere else, it is a little bit longer, more information. Say, for example, we do want that more column, almost like a CSV, something that's more, you know, spreadsheet-like. We can do format table. And we're gonna do something very similar there. We're gonna do that get process. And then, excuse me, with that, we can then go into, let's say, let's do sort. Let's do sort, why not? So we're gonna sort it out a little bit. Oop, fat fingers. Awesome. Very cool. And it's kind of hard to see here. There's a lot going on. It's just everything's kind of sorted out a little bit, you know, where it's supposed to be there. And then we can go a little bit further. And then we're going to pipe that to our format table. And let's just shorthand that. So we're going to do FT, format table. And then we can actually group these together by that base priority. And then we want to keep it from being truncated, so we do that. Now, what's nice about this, and again, this is a very specific use case, but you see how it kind of like squishes them together into those different base priorities, and it kind of groups everything together right there, nice and easy to read. This is really nice if you wanted to output it, you know, somewhere else, but this keeps it nice, segmented, you know, untruncated, what have you. Now, this is fine and dandy. A lot of, again, like I said, a lot of them are kind of already doing a format table. It's kind of base, and you can do it's again those columns. where we can kind of see some magic here is when you start combining this with some other ways of formatting things. And I'm going to show you here. Let me again clear up some space. All right, now this one's really cool. This is one of the last ones we're gonna do tonight. This is known as Out Grid View. Now, Out Grid View is more for your graphical user interface, your GUI type of people. And so what we're gonna do with this one, we're gonna do just a get process, kind of, as we know, kind of cumbersome and heavy. We're then gonna take that and we're going to filter it down with our where object. So we're gonna just throw this in here and oops. Again, a little bit cleaner of our output. And then this is where the magic really happens. So we're gonna do the grid out view. Now what grid out view does, it says, hey, we're taking all this information here through our pipeline. Once we're done, the outs to the grid, and it's gonna throw us this really cool user interface that we can kind of work with. Now what's really nice about this is that instead of going through and doing other, commands, other, flags, what have you, you can actually do all of your filtering directly from this. So if you say, hey, I want to see just, Chrome in this instance, you can type it out and it's very manipulatable. You can maneuver with this and kind of, just do really clean on the fly stuff. And again, this is something you can show people like, hey, what do you want? What looks important here? What value are we looking at? This one's using a lot of processing space. We can kind of see what's less or more, CPU, what have you. And you can kind of sort things out this way. Now, this is great as it is, but you can also do a little bit more manipulation. And this is where, I learned this one more recently. So you can do your out grid view, but then you can actually name it. So you can do a title. Oh my goodness. And then you can say, we're gonna call it get process is the name on the actual piece here. And then we're going to pass that through. And then we're gonna say what kind of, what do we want to export it as? So now we can do an export as a.csv, and then we're gonna just give it a path on my virtual machine here. Let's see. Now, very similar to what we saw before, which I think is still really cool. But what's neat about this one, and this one gets a little bit more, is we do some clicks so we can kind of see what we're working on here. Let's kind of spread out our columns. So say, for example, we wanted to go through here and we say, hey, we want to look at specific process names. So we can actually hold our command button and we can click on whatever we want to work with. So say we want to see stuff that's in Chrome. We want to look at, let's look at MS Edge. And then Xbox. So what we can do is we can select, particular, process names that we like. We can go through filtering, what have you. And then when we hit OK, it actually finalizes being passed over. So then when we go into our File Explorer, and I have this on my separate window over here, 2 seconds. Boop. Right here, we have that same output that we were just digging into, where we have, let's do this. There's that. And then can you guys see that? Let's do that. Cool. So what we have right here is that same exact output from the out grid view that was piped to the CSV. And this is all done, from the command line straight into now a workable GUI, and then now we're into Microsoft Excel. Now, what's really cool is you can go into here. Let's just delete this whole top row. And then we're going to go into our views. I just said review. And then freeze panes, and we're going to freeze that top row. So now we have this top row up here with all of our names of the columns that we're working with. And then we can actually do a little bit easier analysis. We actually kind of dig into these pieces here and just dig, see if we're looking for anything in particular. And again, this is really useful if you're getting into the shell of it. It's nice and easy. This is something you can actually pass over to someone else, saying, hey, here's my output. Here you go. Check this out. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I can get you more information. So I think this is really neat, very helpful, and in my opinion, a little bit easier to navigate. Thank you so much for watching. Next episode, we're going to get into for loops and iterations. So if you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing, doing the whole YouTube thing, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.